Part 2, the chicken home. But actually, before that, there's also a few months, like 5 or 6, I spent home with my parents in the Netherlands. But after the whirlwind romance with the artist man, I decided to come back. We promised each other we were in love. It was very quickly, which on hindsight is never a good sign, but young. And I wanted to go for it, so I did. I even wrote things about it, but yeah, we'll see if I will share it. And but in those months in between, it already became clear how broken my guy was, and probably me too, but that's something I'm trying to figure out now. Because the guy I was in love with, the second artist salesman, he was traumatized. He had a terrible past. His upbringing was difficult. His family didn't really love him, but he at some point got their affection by being the provider for everyone. He also got a kid very young, so in the chicken home I also became a mom for a bit. Interesting experiences. And I also learned that you can love a girl without being her actual mom. Samantha, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. But brokenness. He was awfully broken. And I think in that case it also surprised me how broken I was. And sometimes you have relationships where you're both broken and you help each other. But in our relationship, that was not the case. We were very, very, very attached to each other, but our brokenness clashed and we broke each other more and more and more and more. I call it a mutual toxic relationship, because when you're in a relationship like that, it brings the worst in you to the top. I actually left after 2-3 years because I couldn't deal anymore with the person I was becoming. I couldn't. The things I was tolerating, but also the things I was doing back, I couldn't. I didn't recognize myself anymore. So, brokenness versus brokenness. And then I talk about... now the story is getting tough. Apparently, betrayal by love is easier to deal with than this, because it also affects me when people are like that. Because you talk about suicide. He didn't actually do suicide, but I had to prevent him. Screaming matches. Silent treatment. And that is even worse when he was also illness. And jail. He was basically a troublemaker. And also corruption. But partly also jail because of the other guy I talked about earlier. The funny journalist. And other friends. It's a messed up society sometimes. Another thing I learned is that hurt people hurt people. That's not only in love like with us, but also as a society. If it's so hard, like in some places in Kenya, to make a living and to get your head above water, the social bonds disintegrate. Not always, of course, there are good people, but sometimes, by and large, the social bonds, it's actually proven in research, become less strong. So friends one day, enemies the other day. You can build on some people, but when they have problems, or when you have too many problems, you can't. And you cannot even really make anyone feel bad about that, because they are also only taking care of themselves. So all those things makes you feel unsafe. Unsafe in your home, but also unsafe in your relationship. Like, you cannot build on each other. There were, for example, examples that he was going somewhere for a job, but also feeling ill. But he went anyway because you have to. And then he would stop communicating because he was annoyed by something I said. And then he refused to communicate, and I would basically think he was either in jail or dead. Things like that happened more often than I want to admit. And that leaves a mark on a person because you don't feel safe anymore. You're afraid when somebody doesn't reply for an hour, and that makes you very hard to deal with as well, because if you accidentally don't reply for an hour because you're busy, because people are busy sometimes, it becomes a big problem. When I went home, I really had to learn that not getting a reply doesn't mean somebody hates you. And I repeat it for myself again, not getting a reply doesn't mean somebody hates you. That is what happened. I will not talk about too much. Good things. I also got my Shady web design job, which was good because it learned me web design and interesting people, and a lot of the clients I met I still have to this day, but it was shady as fuck. And our boss, he had something wrong with him because instead of making his employers work, he shouted at them. So that was also not good for my mental health. But I did learn web design and now I'm successful at it. So, ha! More about that later. Also, in the chicken home, Caroline came into my life with Icare. She is one of my earth mothers, mamas. I don't know how to say it in English. Caroline is one of those people who saved me. She saw I was doing internet schools to learn about non-profit because that was my job and my dream. And Caroline recruited me for her organization, Icare Sustainably International. And I think that's one of the reasons that contributed to my sanity this day. Because the job I did with her, I really believed in, because it was all about environmental sustainability for bottom-down people. And it was all about youth empowerment. She gave me lots of responsibilities to build the website, and also at some point, I still am officially, became the vice president. And together we made the organization what it is today, with all the other volunteers as well. That made me feel I could actually achieve something, and I could ask for more in life than what I was getting with the terrible relationship I had. I don't even want to call him a terrible guy, because he was really trying, but sometimes broken people are not good together.